Brooklyn Independent Television.
My name is John Zott. I am one of the founding partners and the technical director here at the Brooklyn Digital Foundry. We're currently in Dumbo in the New York Digital District. Our business is primarily geared towards digital media production and design.
We work with a lot of visualization, so we help architects understand what a space is going to look like before it's actually built. So it's about helping a constituency understand the implications or the ramifications of doing something at the scale of a city or at the scale of a very large building. Architecture blends a kind of creative problem solving and arts discipline with a little bit more kind of rigorous scientific engineering logic-based pursuit. I don't think our creative process has changed a lot from the early days when we were practicing architecture in a very strict traditional sense to what we're doing now, which is ostensibly a more virtual practice in a lot of ways. I think the core values of thinking critically and problem solving that initially attracted me to architecture are still very much in play.
So, most of the time it will come in as flat material like these drawings here, and eventually we will bring those things into a three-dimensional environment by building these kinds of models in the computers you can see here. At that point it goes through the computer pipeline, it gets rendered into pictures that much like you see here on this screen, where we'll have a kind of like base level of information. So at that point we have to start to add other layers of information. What we often do is produce these kind of wireframes, as we call them, where the computer is essentially moving through the three-dimensional environment that we built earlier in order to give the client an idea about what the content of each shot is going to be. But this, of course, here is another a representation of one of the shots where we go from the context that had live footage in it to the interior of the building, which is entirely computer generated. So we go from a shot similar to this one to a shot similar to this one. This is that same shot going from the cathedral, and here we are. We've added cars, buses, some walking people, and greenery in order to kind of totally fill out the picture, the portrait of what the architectural vision is for this particular site. The Highline project was an interesting one because, and we were very excited about it because of the obvious contribution it was going to make to the city as a whole. And those are the kinds of projects that we really treasure here, being part of this community. The goal wasn't to demonstrate exactly what the place would be like, but more to demonstrate its relationship to its context and all of the different kind of special moments that were being built into this existing, train track. Despite the fact that reuse of a building might seem kind of limiting from a creative perspective or from an artistic perspective, it's an opportunity for dialogue. And the final product is inevitably going to have a kind of soul that it wouldn't possess if it were a vision that grew up from a blank slate and was perfectly coordinated. And I think that that opens an opportunity for other people to establish a dialogue with it and begin to bring it into the sociocultural milieu of its immediate context and those that use it. It also means that it's going to have greater longevity, I think, because it's inherently a dynamic idea that will embrace change. And I think that that's better suited for an urban environment. In addition to being a partner at the Brooklyn Digital Foundry, I also am a sculptor. I work predominantly in the medium of wood. I do sort of geometric, abstract work. And having that outlet, even when I was an architect proper, was very important to me because it's a more immediate cycle. The cycle of architecture is like this, and the cycle of working with furniture or art with real material in your hands is a much shorter thing. I work in wood just because there's something very tactile about it. It's very
very malleable, and I think you can say that of a lot of things, clay, metal, when you heat it up. But for me, wood, maybe it's reduced down to that it's just the smell. I mean, it smells great. There's fine patterns depending on the kind of wood you use. So it's more about working within a medium that already has its own tendencies and structures and patterns, and kind of listening to what it does, in a way.
As wide open as the current field of architectural expression seems to be at the moment, I do believe that there is a certain amount of experiential territory that has been off limits to architects. Certain phenomena in the built environment, like graffiti vandalism, idiosyncratic additions to buildings that weren't part of its original vision, the kind of funny things that happen through patterns of reuse as economic models for development shift within the city, and they often shift a lot faster than the city can keep up with them. So we see these moments that have tremendous character, but are also anathema to the kinds of things that architects have to do. And that's the divide between kind of experiential visions that guide contemporary architecture currently, and the kinds of experiential visions that I would like to see folded in.
We work nationally and globally as well, but we're definitely a Brooklyn business, and being in Brooklyn, there's a pace and an energy within the creative community that I think is really stimulating. You can work with a lot of people very closely. Collaboration is very different. Ideas are much freer here, and so I think there's a real cultural and creative zeitgeist kind of going right here.
Download this program's podcast on iTunes. Keywords Brooklyn Independent Television.